this is the whole kind of cycle of things. We get business from open source because people use it and trust us and reach out. But also we open source things we came up with for solving client problems.
Hey, before we get started, I'd like to remind you the full episode is only available to our paid subscribers. The current platforms you can subscribe to us on are Patreon, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. In the full version of this episode, we talk to Irina about leading a team of open source superstars, and of course, all of our tooltips for the week. And with that, let's get on to the episode. Hello, welcome to the devtools-fm podcast. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew Lazowski, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hi, everyone. Today, we're very excited to have Irina Nazarova. So Irina is the CEO of Evil Martians, which is a consultancy, but largely just this great source in the open source space in particular. So if you've used tools like PostCSS, you've used their work. And I'm so excited to have you on, Irina. Really excited to sort of dig into some of these things. But before we get started, would you like to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. I'm the CEO of Evil Martians and actually tried many different things. So before that, and I can't say that I have a single profession, that I've been doing my whole life. So like coming from different things, I worked for JP Morgan Investment Bank at some point. Before that, I worked as a C++ engineer. After that, I started a startup, and then I learned Ruby on Rails, and there are many things. And I worked as a studio photographer as well. So was just, I think, trying out different things, but then eventually it all, I think, came together at Evil Martians, where I enjoy working with engineers and building developer tools and building open source, but also working with startups and businesses and this side of things. Yep.
Yeah, so early in your career, it seemed like you'd bounce between a lot of domains. I was looking at your LinkedIn, and you're developing here. You did JP Morgan. You started a few startups. So I just want to dig into that a little bit before we go on. So what did you do at JP Morgan? What led you there? I just find it interesting that you worked at a bank. It's not usual that our guests have done that.
Yeah, I guess it's. I was young, and I was interested in this whole, fancy investment banking stuff, and that's so I went to intern at the investment bank itself, and then I went on to become an equity research analyst. So this is where you kind of forecast what's happening with companies, public companies. It's actually a useful skill if you think about it from the entrepreneurship kind of perspective, because you want to be able to forecast some scenarios and some things. So it was useful, I'd say. But clearly, I was, I think, wrong thinking of myself as an investment banker, thinking that I would be motivated enough, I think, to stay. And because I'm motivated by building things much more than by looking at things, analyzing things.
It's a cool story. So something that I would like to just sort of ask about. So you said, at Evil Martians now, you're obviously the leader of this organization, sort of helping, foster and grow this company. But you're also really interested in building, you're a driven creator. Those can be two different hats, figuring out how much time do I spend just trying to help this organization survive, and how much time do I give myself to express some sort of creative outlet. So how do you sort of balance those two roles?
That's true. That's so true. All right. You could say there are more hats, even, but okay, I have this. So the same thing happens with the other sort of leaders in this company. Like I have head of backend, head of frontend. They are all amazing builders and creators. And my the idea is this organization is kind of benefits from leaders that are builders themselves so much, and this helps us continue solving sometimes problems that maybe we don't really want to be solving, different organizational level obstacles and stuff like that. But I think we are coming up with something that is better than knowing that we're also building things in parallel, we're also launching different things, we're also supporting each other. So I like this kind of the idea is that we're wearing both of those hats and contributing to this organization that is not so large, right? We are like 50 people, but it's important. It's an important one. So we want to make it, successful, resilient, and make people who work here at Evil Martians like happy and fulfilled, I think.
So, just a little bit more on the early career. What was your first step into leadership, and how did that experience form you and your experiences going into your Evil Martians?
Yeah, it's a cool question. I think starting a startup was how I learned this leadership track, because you could say nobody can maybe make you a leader, right? So you risk yourself, something like that. And well, probably there is a path where, okay, you start in a company as an analyst, then you go on to become, and then like 8 years later, you are like a director at JP Morgan. Boring. Yeah. No, like loads of money. But anyways, I just left and started a startup, and I'd say it was like an MBA for myself, where my first startup and my first angel investors were essentially like paying for my education, you could say, because to be honest, it was a good one. I mean, we had some amazing results, but still, I shut it down eventually. But I think I learned a lot there. This was the first step, and but I grew into CEO at Evil Martians within the company. So I think it was 4 years since I joined till I became the CEO, and it was probably a different process because this organization is much larger than the startups I had. And you could say it's also 16 years old now, so it's on a different stage, like of sort of business, life cycle. And this means being the CEO here it's a different role than being the early stage, like early days of a startup CEO and founder. But yeah, I could maybe, tell just a little bit about some of those kind of revelations. For example, I started as a manager working with clients, and as a manager, I don't know, like you are constantly sort of bombarded with different tasks. So, I mean, there's so many tasks, and like you want to be helpful, right? You want to be helpful here and there and everywhere. And you end up running those sort of even like errands, someone's requests all day long. And this is, at some point you realize that this is all you do. And then you start sort of reflecting and thinking, is it the best work? Is it the best thing? Is it the most important and kind of highest, value, whatever thing that I could do, right? Because if you think about this, some of those requests are relatively random because someone just thought about something and asked you. And it doesn't have to be highest priority. It's just that, someone asked you something. That's it. And so I started taking sort of control over that, started thinking, what is the highest priority? And then maybe there's something that is high priority that is not mentioned anywhere because it's not even discussed anywhere. And why? Because it is so deep or the problem is so large that people are not ready to discuss it. Something like that. So this is how I think you become more of a leader of at least your own work, in your own work, right? When you start thinking about like your priorities in the context of the company, right? Of like mutual interest, shared interest, and then you start thinking in terms of the group, maybe the project, right? What are the problems that we should discuss, and like as a team, like what could be for us as a team better, for our shared goals and for everyone's well-being, whatever. So this is how it kind of grew into something of a C-level position at the company.
Yeah, your viewpoint has to change a lot when you go from individual contributor to CEO. Like you have to focus in on a much different level of detail.
True.
Yeah, I think that leadership is so understated, even for people who are building tools, right? Because there's no, by and large, the notion of just like an individual contributor who's someone who's I just like sit down and write code is almost a myth in itself, right? Because you're leading in ideas, if nothing else, or in patterns, and leadership is such a fundamental part of everything. Because one of my sort of favorite sayings is like, all software systems are human systems, and the sooner that people sort of accept that, embrace it, you like start to learn that one of the really important parts of anything that we're building is the people who are using it, the people who are helping build it, the people who it's impacting, and like taking that all into account and trying to balance decisions starts really quickly turning into like leadership responsibilities. And then obviously the more leverage you have or the higher up, your decision-making process goes, then the different flavors of leadership come in. But
yeah, important. And I realized there is different conflicting notions of leadership. So some people think that leadership is you making all the decisions you want for everyone and sort of single-handedly, while first of all, I think it should be super kind of egoless if you really want to be a leader of the organization, not just someone, I don't know, trying to prove something, whatever. So it's not like most of the time you're forgetting about your own whatever desires, right? And you're trying to think what's best for this group, for this team. So this is leadership for me, like trying to talk to, like, get the information, disclose the information. I think information transparency is super important. So for example, pretty often in projects, you see that engineers, the engineering team that is building the product doesn't know any, results, for example, any effect, like how those kind of last features affected like anything. They don't, like, there's no connection to the results of their work, and it's so kind of demotivating. And I think it's also their decisions are, can be suboptimal if they don't understand, right, like the end goals and stuff like that, and then the end results of their work. So sometimes it's just providing transparency this is also leadership, because you trust. Leadership means trusting your team, understanding your team really well, and giving them all the tools, all the information, and all the support, infrastructure they need to do their best work. So something like that.
Yeah, it's such a great topic and so important. So while we're talking about sort of leadership and your transition into Evil Martians, maybe it'd be good for us to just step back and introduce Evil Martians to people who might not have heard of it. Like, what, how would you describe the company to someone who's just like coming across it for the first time? And what's your pitch?
Sure. So Evil Martians is a product development consulting company. And so we help mostly early stage venture-backed startups build products, but also we bring tools and best practice and documentation, other things that, with the goal of making sure this company can grow further without us, when we finish this. So we build a ton of open source and content based on our work for startups. So you could say our business model is open source and content centric. We can talk more about that, but for originally Evil Martians started as like this consulting company for startups. The second pillar was improving our work. Like we're looking for people who could be passionate about improving their work continuously. This is where open source is, stemming from. So you build your own tools, you open source them, you improve them, or you improve the tools that are already out there that you use in open source. So you improve it through open source. And then we were also, remote, distributed, global. So we have offices in Japan, in Portugal, and in the United States. And people scattered across different time zones. And at the beginning, the company was focusing on Ruby on Rails.
Yeah, I find the way that you guys work kind of inspiring. Like, not many other consulting agencies like bet on open source like you guys do. It seems like such a good way to do, as you said, like carry your work forward. You guys have such a unique opportunity of working with all of these different people and being able to see into all of these different problems. And it just feels so natural that from that knowledge, you'd produce a lot of great open source tooling.
True. That's I will say it also super tightly kind of coupled with our business. So it's not open source. It's not it's super close to our business, to how we're getting business, to be honest, right? So let's just be super open about it. So like you said, we work with multiple startups. So we have the perspective of how 20 to 30 teams work every year. Not just, when you work within one large organization, like a big tech, for example, you understand which tools are needed in this, large, huge organization or whatever. But we see startups. So this is a different perspective, right? And we like startups because it's so easy to start working with them. It's just less inefficiency, I think, in the process. And then we notice, okay, we can open source this because this can help several projects at least. But to be honest, we have a culture where engineers by default open source things. It's not that every time it has to be like super conscious, super thoughtful, and kind of thinking, oh, this is going to be popular. No. Most of them are not popular at all, and it's just the habit, you could say, the approach, right? Where you think, oh, I could open source it. Maybe it makes sense, maybe not. I'll see, right? It's not such a big deal. The clients are ready because they know we already do it, sometimes if it's closer to something client specific, we will definitely discuss it with them and kind of get their approval. But if it's just something completely not related to the client, it's easy to open source, and this is just a byproduct, right? And then then some of them grow because we see how we use them between different products, then how our clients use our instruments, right, and our tools between different products. Then we share those tools, people use them, people reach out to Evil Martians when they've already used our tools, so they have some trust, I think, in the team, right? Understand that we are really focused on doing something good, doing something pretty high quality. I mean, we will balance, like for a startup, it's not that you always need everything like super high quality in detail, whatever. But for the tools, we are trying to I'd say we're a bit more geeky and a bit more kind of detailed, with a bit more detailed approach. So this is interesting. I think it's fun. It's a lot of fun, right? This is the whole kind of cycle of things. We get business from open source because people use it and trust us and reach out. But also we open source things we came up with for solving client problems. So it's like a cycle.
Yeah, I think there's so much to be said for open source and business. So when I worked at Artsy had an engineering principle of open source by default. So we actually had a bot that would like open an issue anytime you created a private repo. It open an issue and say, why is this private? It's like try to like give you your justification for like what is the business case for making something private versus why should we make something public? So I always loved that. And there was like some interesting properties that fell out of it. So one of the things is like so many of our jobs are just sort of a black hole to all this work that we do. So we put in all this life energy into this company. And then when we leave, we have the story of things that we did, but like often the artifacts, the like actual outcomes of that is lost, or it's lost to us anyway. Whereas like when you get to do a lot of open source in your day-to-day work, you can just like point people to like PRs and issues and repos and projects, and you have this story around how you spent your time. I think that's more tangible and compelling.
Absolutely. And I want to say most of the open source that that Martians build, it's in their personal accounts, right? We're not saying like you can open source it, but keep it in Evil Martian account. No, not at all. I mean, we actually have something in Evil Martian's account, but for example, Lefthook, but it's more about something where we had multiple maintainers and we are sort of maintaining consciously this tool. But mostly it's just your GitHub account and, like you said, right, just in your history or your tools and your, even you could say, career as an engineer, right? It's like something you show to your, but also how people, I don't know, it's just sad if you're building something that is closed source all the time and nobody knows anything about the things you work on. It's also kind of a bit sad, right?
Yeah, you can't contribute to the conversation. Like I've learned so much just by going through other people's code, and I'm sure if I went through some of the Evil Martians code bases, I'd learn a lot. And closing that off is kind of sad.
Yeah. And something, Justin, you said about open source as a continuation of your work, and I'm thinking about this, by the way. So we have this commercial open source companies, right, where there's an open core, right, an open source core, and a paid offering in different forms. So, like let's say the hope is that if this commercial company goes kind of bankrupt or changes priorities pivots, whatever, right? The work that is in open source is still there, and there is no legal restriction for any other company to use it, right? So this work is not lost. And maybe some of the employees will decide, oh, we want to start a startup and we'll use this open source to turn it into something new. Or isn't it cool, right? Because otherwise it'd be just, just lost, just wasted.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the relationship with open source and monetization, or the realities of living in a capitalistic society and having to provide for your employees, and also wanting to engage in this sort of free exchange of ideas. Mm-hmm. Open core is a great one. The thing that I like about, things like what Evil Martians is doing and sort of what Artsy was doing. So Artsy was, they had a SaaS product, and they in no way were like, hey, we're not trying to make our product open source, but all the stuff that we do around the edges that's not meaningful to our organizations, there's no reason to have these things private. The thing that I really like about this and the Evil Martians approach is because sometimes you get a lot of satisfaction from having an idea, putting it, actually creating it, really forming it, and then shipping it out, and then having this packaged up product thing. You're just yeah, this is this has my sort of intellectual DNA all over it. I really enjoy this problem. And it can be really hard to detangle that from oh, well, I'm working on an open source database, and actually I kind of worked on this one little module, but the story there is a little bit less clear. But if it's you have somebody on your team who's yeah, this person wrote PostCSS or whatever, then it's it's a little bit easier to sort of package up that story. And I feel there's a lot of you were talking earlier about one of the jobs in leadership, and one of the jobs that you take on is trying to make people feel fulfilled in their work. And I think this is a really important part for creators, is to be able to just build something and ship it out and have it tightly packaged up. And when it's smaller, more discrete things, I think, at least in my personal experience, that satisfaction's a lot higher, because it's just there's a beginning and an end, and you have this thing that you can think about and talk about.
Yeah, it's so cool that we have in the ecosystem many small tools actually are super meaningful, right? It's not just the huge whatever frameworks or huge platforms as a service or whatever that you use and value and treasure and love, right? It's often sometimes it's a tiny library that you love. We have, for example, Nana stores, and different a whole bunch of libraries in small size for front end, which are this smaller versions of existing large things. And sometimes this approach is just, you might fall in love with it. And it's just one person who built it. And this is not super experienced, whatever, a open source star right? So I think I'm really enjoying in this whole community of developer tools, building tools for engineers and open source, the idea is that everyone is a creator, almost like that, right? So it's a community of creators, and when we talk, it's not about me, you being a consumer, you being a producer, whatever, right? It's us being both creators, and we exchange ideas. I can contribute to your product, or you can contribute to mine, or we build something together, whatever. So this is the such a nice part of what web looks like right now, right? Because if you think about, I started as a C++ engineer, or even before that I started .NET, and you can't think of, I think they open sourced a lot of stuff, Microsoft open sourced their whole a bunch of stuff, but it still feels so enterprisey, and you don't feel that you as an individual creator could meaningfully contribute whilst and in like web stacks, we do this all the time, right?
Yeah, web is so different that like npm packages everywhere. You got a problem, let's make a package, let's fix your problem. Whereas like in other ecosystems, it's like you have these large monolithic things that everybody kind of uses, and then for the small things, you're just kind of left to your own devices. So like the fact that we can like share our innovation and our creativity in such an easy and portable way is just awesome.
True, true. Love it.
You mentioned that you have some internal startups now. So that's like kind of a foreign concept, and it goes along with commercial open source really well. So can you explain like what that is? Like how did you guys come to the situation where you're like, oh, we should create a product for this, it should be internal to this company and kind of like our own thing?
Yeah, this again. So we already have large open source tools like PostCSS, right? It's people use it, maybe millions of people use it, but as a dependency for sure, like in Tailwind, for example. So through some of those more modern CSS things, but I think 2 years ago, maybe 3, it was the first time we started discussing if we can commercialize open source products. So that's something different, I think. So if you think about it, there's some difference between a technology, which can be an open source, right, and the product. So, and by product I mean something, especially when you want people to pay for it. So products are normally expected to solve someone's problem super easily, and that's different from open source sometimes, because in open source sometimes it's just look, those are the tools for super smart guys. I mean, if you're able to use it, you're one of those amazing, experienced, advanced engineers, whatever. Sometimes there's this kind of approach with open source. I'm not saying that what's better, by the way. Sometimes building tools for experts is also meaningful, because not everything has to be for a wide audience, right? Doesn't have to be that way. Sorry. A couple of years ago, we decided to try and commercialize ImgProxy. ImgProxy it is an on-the-fly image optimization server. So it runs on-premise, on your infrastructure, something that you run on your infrastructure, and it is the most efficient, most kind of memory efficient and resource efficient otherwise tool for that. So we built it for eBay. By the way, it's not a startup, right? Most of our clients are startups, but yeah, sorry. Startups and eBay, yeah. Yeah, it's a bit, yeah. But we built internal, like a side projects within eBay. So it was more like a startup. And so we needed a tool to optimize images, and not just some images, but like millions of product images that come from eBay in a resource efficient way, and also to protect from image bombs and stuff like that. So like Sergey Alexandrovich, our backend engineer, built this. And what I liked about ImgProxy is that he wanted to make it simple. So you run it as a Docker container on your infrastructure, and you just serve it a URL of your image, and and some parameters, like for example the size, the format. If you want to use, we can also do kind of smart crop. For example, you would crop it, but the kind of the face is in this, so that the face is in the center or whatever, or something. Yep. And I also like this smart quality, because you, what you want the image to be sort of good quality, but you don't know what the good quality is. And it's yeah, there are kind of some smart ways to optimize quality as well. So you serve it those parameters, and it returns this optimized image for your smartphone, for a mobile app, for your mobile website, for your large screen website, whatever. Right? It's what you get what you need. Normally, it gets served from cache, but when it's not in cache, it's just regenerated on the fly. So if you think about it, if you even compare the cost of storage with the cost of cache is so much cheaper that you save here already. And you don't generate what you don't need. So if something is never requested, it's not generated, it's not stored. So yeah, so that was, and so we started selling licenses for this product, and we have companies like Substack, Medium, and Dribble using ImgProxy Pro. And the Pro has some advanced features. Yeah. So, but we still don't have the kind of SaaS offering, but it's almost counterintuitive to have it, because we sort of trying to say that, look, at a certain size at least, you're much better running this on your infrastructure, because it's just going to be so much cheaper. And it's really like that. So that's we just created a license, we created a website, we started doing some marketing. So the way we do it, we just write articles, to be honest, right? And we sometimes those articles get picked up by some newsletters or something. And we also experimented with different things, like I think there was a launch on Product Hunt, and then we also tried selling to specific companies, specific industries where we know that this is already used by some of the competitors, whatever. So yeah, we just tried many different things, and it's growing. I wouldn't say that we experienced this explosive growth with ImgProxy. I wouldn't say that, but it is super. I like that it's growing, and the churn is super low. So it's like the retention is over 90%. So yeah, so it is a good product, I think. But my work was in how to incentivize the product's team. That's the most important thing, because I want them to know they are the owners. But Evil Martians is like an early investor, the earliest investor in this thing. So we kind of calculate the amount we sort of spent, mostly by providing the team's time at the beginning. And it also has to have some structure, because you don't want to just spend, all the team's time on building something without any goals, whatever. So it was like, let's just spend 50% during several months and see if we can have like the first 10 paying customers, whatever. And then kind of continue going, so that now the team, then the team kind of incorporated. They just did it. We didn't announce yet, by the way, but there's some things still to finalize. But they are super incentivized to. They know they continue to have our support, but they also want to graduate, let's say, at this kind of school. And that was my goal, to make sure that we have this path where, if you have an idea of an open, So first of all, you start with open source. You think if you think about ways to commercialize. You think about someone who would be willing to pay money for this, and then we help with just kind of marketing, selling, hopefully accumulating knowledge of how to do this. And that's why it also helps that now we have most of our clients are also developer tools startups. So we learn from them and we exchange, the context and the knowledge. We exchange some kind of best practice. What can you try to sell, whatever. And then the team knows that the higher the valuation they get on this first external round, the higher the share they keep in this company, and they still keep the majority share, right? So the share of Evil Martians is it's larger. It's positively correlated with the amount of money we spend, we provide, and it is negatively correlated with the valuation, right, of the company. So bigger valuation, less share of Evil Martians, and it's going to make sense for us. So I'm not sure if it's super kind of clear, but what I'm trying to say is part of my work is just trying to come up with certain agreements that will make sense. And we want people to be able to launch new products, but we want them to have the right incentives, because when you do something like that within the company, you it's a different thing, right? You're in the comfort of your employer, and it's so different than running your own startup. So we want it to be closer to, still in the comfort of, we have all the resources, all the help, all the support of Evil Martians, but closer to, I should be mindful of the sort of amount of support I'm receiving, and I should be really focusing on getting this off the ground and, making sure it goes somewhere, because otherwise it's just gonna be put on hold, I think. And there's an exit path, by the way. I think if something's not working, you can just open source everything, and it's there, so it's not lost.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're helping build the framework for making Evil Martians almost into a startup incubator. You're helping define this process to make it so that it's easy for people to get on this track if they want to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's not that I want us to be an incubator. I just find it inevitable because this happens, and after 15 years in a consulting company, or 10 years or 5 years, you might be so passionate about some tool you've built. Do you want to build it? And maybe we want to be the first ones to support and invest. Yeah.
This is so fascinating to me. There are like a lot of different aspects of this that I find super compelling. One of the things is I'm very pro like cooperatives, profit sharing structures, or trying to find like more ethical ways of having smaller businesses where people, sort of get the value out of the work that they put in. Mm-hmm. And those organizational structures are non-trivial. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do well. And I love just hearing any idea in the space and having this notion of like, we provide a support structure. So if you build something and there's value, then like we'll help you, turn this into something. And it's like this mutually beneficial relationship that I think is just awesome. I haven't heard of this model happening anywhere else, so I think it's really cool. The other thing that it lines up with is I've thought about like what AWS does for a long time. It's like they have this magical ability. I mean, of course they have like mountains of money, but they have this magical ability to like take this tool that some team is working on and then suddenly it's a product, and like they've turned it into this whole thing. Now they're getting like paying customers for it. And I was like, figuring out how to incentivize a group of people to be able to do that, it's like build the things that you want to internally, but figure out how it can provide value. And if this is something we can turn into a product, if we can build a culture of like making it easy or easier to do that, then, that's great. And I think you've hit this really sweet spot where you're looking like kind of doing both. You're like building an incentive structure for like, you've done all this work, we can like sort of find some value in it, and like people will pay for valuable tools. And then also you're like, you've done all this work and you want to sort of own it, and like we can sort of help you get there. And it's just awesome. That's fascinating.
I mean, it also means that sometimes you're saying no. I mean, the thing is, why those things, I think, do not work often, is because, first of all, because the company wants to keep a huge share in this product. And I believe this is a mistake. Because maybe in some sense, in a very plain, thinking, you'd think, oh, the higher my share, the more, of the business I own, and the better for me. Well, if you're not operating this business, this is actually worse for you to have to be a majority shareholder or whatever, because this means that the people who are actually running this company do not feel like owners, and they will, drop it, to be honest, right, when something happens. So this is sort of a bit of kind of counterintuitive thing where you'd actually want to have a small share, even because you want as a company, as this incubator or whatever, you want a small share because you want the authors, the people who run it, to have a large share, to own it, to have every chance of success as any other kind of good product. So, and also there is adverse selection happening if you do it otherwise. So many kind of things, but I'm, for example, sometimes someone has an idea and they reach out to me and say, can you support me? And sometimes I say no, because first of all, we have limited budget for this, that's for sure, because, well, every company has limited budget on any investment. It's just, maybe if you are, I don't know.
Amazon.
Amazon, exactly.
Yeah.
A monopoly.
By the way, this year, I don't even know, like, who feels comfortable, who feels safe. I don't know. Yeah, who's like that? But even big companies like in like Ruby on Rails world, it's Shopify. They had 2 layoffs, major layoffs, and are experiencing problems. Anyways, so this doesn't mean that everyone gets what they want. It just means that there is a hopefully balanced framework where you can get what you want if you're lucky, to be honest, right? If your product gets used by people and you work on it really hard, then you'll have more support and maybe higher chances of success than otherwise without the structure. But it doesn't mean that it's some magic where everyone gets what they want, magically.
Yeah, for sure. Even with the limited path, though, so many places you work, you don't have that path. It's like, I worked really, really hard and I come up with this new tool. We're going to make it a product, and maybe I get a small raise next year. It's like, that's the reality of like most companies. Or you move out, you like literally leave the company and you get investors and you do this whole thing. This like sort of gradual slope where you have, if it's a proven idea and the organization has resources, then you can like support them into something and in a mutually beneficial way. Having the event horizon where that is a possibility, I think is huge and meaningful and probably very motivating.
And for the company, it's also super useful because our clients are increasingly those developer tools startups. So we have StackBlitz, building browser-based runtime and IDE, and we have Teleport and Playbook, like many startups, and HTTP. Maybe you've seen that tool. We built their app. So the more we understand how those businesses are built, grown, and become successful, the better for everyone, I think. So we learn from our internal experiences, we learn from our clients. There's some exchange here, and well, and as a company, we also want to have this possibility of, an upside possibility to build something bigger. So consulting is a very, I'd say, more or less stable business, because even in bad times, you can adjust. I'd say there's a lot of opportunity for adjustment in consulting business, because people have problems, people benefit from your expertise that is accumulated through years. So it's easier to adjust some services in consulting than pivot the product, right? But there's limited possibility of, of a dream, let's say, right? Where, maybe we are lucky and so the dreams come true. So this can only be done through some kind of co-ownership in startups, I think. And that's what we're looking to have as well. That'd be cool. That'd be fun. I mean, that's just, to be honest, it's just a dream. And my role here is to try to make it real. I can't say that we are like doing millions of startups and they are all unicorns and whatever, right? It's not that. It's just starting. It's just a small thing. But if you don't have a dream, if you're not trying to, build it, then it's not going to happen anyways. So let's do our best and hope that it will go somewhere.
This is so cool. I'm super excited for y'all. You're setting a great model, I think, for the industry, being like a really good example. So I hope it is very successful, and I hope other people try to take that up. That's great.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. With that, let's transition to Tooltip.
I just want to mention that. So there's still war in Ukraine, and if you consider donating to Ukraine, it's a really good cause, because it will help real people. I think right now it's like my responsibility is to try to convince more people to join me in supporting this cause. And Razum for Ukraine is one of the official kind of US-based nonprofits. So you have all the kind of tax benefits from that. And it's also very easy to donate to. So if you can just subscribe for monthly, whatever amount is comfortable. And it really goes to local initiatives on the ground, not to some like Red Cross stuff and stuff like that, but to multiple local initiatives. So I tried to find the organizations that are true to the cause, and this one is one of them. I recommend it.
Yeah, definitely encourage people. I've used a few different ones. I work with a coworker who used to live in Kiev and was displaced during the war, and it affects a lot of real people, a lot of people who build open source tools, whatever, just everyday people. So definitely, consider it.
Yeah, many engineers. Ukraine is home to so many engineers in open source, in products. There's so many products with engineering teams in Ukraine now, partly displaced or like in different kind of hard situations, but I think it's just a good cause overall. So let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, with that wraps up Tooltips. Thanks, Irina, for coming on. This was a different conversation than we usually have from the leadership perspective, but I think it was a great one. Like what you guys are doing at Evil Martians is a very interesting way to run a consulting company, and I think it's inspiring for other people in the space.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here and to have a chance to talk to you about it. And yeah, it was not a typical conversation about engineering stuff, but hopefully some of those ideas are important for the ecosystem, for making sure that open source and developer tools are both growing, having enough support, right, getting enough resources, and that there is that we help each other, right? So the open source and collaboration in developer tools, like I said before, I think it's just amazing, and that's one of the reasons why so many people are attracted and passionate about this. Is that sense of community and collaboration that we have here. So thank you for doing this podcast. I think it's definitely supports this community.
Yeah. And thanks again for coming on. Just to sort of repeat what Andrew said, I think this is and sort of repeat what you said. This is such an important space. We talk a lot about, the technology side, but the reality is if you really enjoy building developer tools, you got to think about how you make it into something, or how do you join someone to make it into something. And I think getting these different perspectives on how to either have ways of building sustainable businesses or how other businesses work is so incredibly important for the space. And I'm happy to have those conversations. And I just love what Evil Martians is doing. So y'all are great, and I can't wait to see, how everything goes.